I'm Bailey Parnell, and this is Let's Think This Through. Join me for drinks as I bring on guests for conversations that inspire, amuse, and challenge us, but in a fun and relaxing kind of way. Ultimately, it's to help us all learn and live a better, easier life. So let's think this through. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Think This Through with me, Bailey Parnell. I gotta say, you are in for a treat with this episode. This might be one of my favorite episodes. Can I say that? Or do I say that every time? I don't know, but it is. And it's just with a friend of mine who I met in my doctorate. And maybe on paper, if we weren't in this class together, we wouldn't have found each other in the world. He was born in a different country. He was in the military for a lot of his life. And we get into everything in this podcast. We talk about the good and the bad sides of the military, mental health, veterans, and even psychedelics and what he's doing now and what he's researching. And I have to say, I had to bring him on because these conversations with him have been some of the most interesting I've had in the last couple of years. And you're going to get just a little taste of that. And so who I'm going to have for drinks on Let's Think This Through is my friend, Jeff Wozencraft. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks for having me.
No, I'm glad to have you. This is a long time coming. You're one of my favorite people to talk to in our program.
I know, I'm excited.
So introduce yourself to the people. How are you introducing yourself these days?
It's multifaceted. So my name is Jeff Wozencraft, born and raised in Oklahoma. I guess my current identity, I would say, is I am a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. I am also just received, as of this weekend, candidacy for my doctoral program through Baylor University. And
congrats, by the way.
I don't know how that happened.
I know how it happened.
Yeah, still no idea. And then I am also a husband and father to a 4-year-old, and in 2 months, a son named Mason. So super excited about that.
You have a lot on the horizon right now, eh?
I know. Yeah, this nonprofit, work, my day job, school. It's all stacking up.
We'll get into it. What are you drinking?
I'm drinking kombucha.
Oh, nice.
So since I don't drink, I quit drinking about a year ago or 2 years ago. And so now it's the only thing I'll do is kombucha.
Oh, yeah. So have not really got into that. Have you actually found all these health benefits that everyone talks about?
Yes. Well, I mean, it's not alcoholic. Or it's not alcohol. So it's like the alternative. It's kind of like a treat drink. So I guess it is healthy in comparison to having a beer or, some like bourbon or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I just feel like all of the hippies in my life are obsessed with kombucha.
Yeah, I think it's a fad. I mean, I don't know, but I don't know. I like it. It's something different. There are supposedly benefits to it. So it was something like, because the two big things I quit was that and soda. So
how come?
Health reasons. There's zero benefits to alcohol to your body. Like there's not one health benefit to it, and everything I've researched is like, wow, so maybe I should stop drinking it. And I stopped drinking it. My sleep improved, my life improved.
Yeah.
There's indirect impacts to not drinking. And then soda, it was like a treat to have, like a Diet Dr. Pepper was my drink. And so then I went to just carbonated water, and that definitely it was a great substitute. So now this is the only alternative thing I'll drink is kombucha for, like, if I'm getting together with friends and they have, they're having alcohol, I'll just bring kombucha or something.
Oh, it's nice. Well, I'm glad that you brought it. It's funny because even though I do drink alcohol, I laugh with my husband. I'm just like, yeah, I like it, but I can't make a case for it. Like, I can't
Exactly.
I don't think there's anything in my body that's like, yeah, thanks for doing this to me.
Especially the older you get, it's like, I can't drink. Even two glasses of wine, the next day I'm feeling it. And scientifically, it impacts your sleep. It'll impact your ability to get deep and REM sleep. So then you're waking up the next day, even though you're not hungover, you're still kind of screwed over because you had wine the day before. And then, so it just kind of, it was always like, it became like an event, like I was like, on Fridays. I wouldn't drink Monday through Thursday, but I would have a drink, and I would realize I was aiming for the buzz. I wasn't drinking for the
Right.
taste. I was drinking to get that buzz. So
Yeah,
then
like
you
the
start to ask
chill.
yourself, like, what am I trying to escape? Why do I need that? And
Yeah.
then you realize when you cut away from it, you realize how ingrained it is into our culture and society, because
So
it's
true.
like, hey, Bailey, let's get together and go have water. No, it's always like,
Yeah,
let's go get
man,
together
that's
and have a
right.
drink. It's just, it's so ingrained in our society to have alcohol. And so then it's just another way for me. It's like, I see it, another way to control society. So I'd rather just cut away from it.
Yeah, you'll see even on funnily enough, considering this is called "Let's Think This Through" and have a drink together.
Yeah.
But you'll find that just like you, a lot of the guests even on this podcast are always given the choice. You want to do cocktails, you want to go for mocktails, you want to go for chai, whatever.
You
And
know,
most people have chosen non-alcoholic
I feel
choices,
like,
but I guess that's kind of maybe a little bit biased because they're worried about being on a podcast or something. I don't know. I like the ones when people choose a cocktail too.
yeah, I mean, I will at time to time have like a glass of wine or something like that, but it's very rare. But I believe we're going to see a major shift over the next like 10 to 15 to 20 years of getting away from alcohol. And you can
Mhm.
already see that
I
a
agree.
lot of the alcohol companies are having non-alcoholic options. But I've been telling some friends lately, I think the alcohol is the new cigarettes, where
Mhm.
cigarettes was everybody was doing it, it's okay, and then everything was coming out that it's bad. They
Mm.
tried to keep the market, they tried to market it that it's okay, and tried to keep the research down. But then eventually 80s, 90s it switched. And so I believe, in 20 years from now, I believe we're going to see that major shift, that people are going to get away from alcohol, because it's just not, there's no benefit to it for you health wise.
I'm totally with you there, and I actually think that it has already started because there's been like this quote unquote sober curious movement,
Hmm.
and then just sober people by choice, and then also sober by design, I guess,
Yeah.
and people choosing to like. I thought this was curious. Like, I was really into this idea after the pandemic because there was such a rise in drinking during the pandemic. And then there was almost like the pendulum swung back afterwards. And so all the bars in my area, both in Toronto and in New York City, were offering like non-alcoholic menus. And I was kind of
Hmm.
like, oh, this is great. And they said, yeah, because we've had more and more people come in specifically asking for it. And so I thought, like, to get to that point where the kind of capital markets, if you will, like these companies, you're saying adapting their practices can only tell you that it's because it's being asked for, right?
Yeah, and that's what kind of triggered me, and thinking that, what, if they're already having to adapt their marketing, and they're already having to adapt how they operate, that it's coming, so
Yeah.
they're trying to get ahead of it by, we have non-alcoholic options, so please still come to us and have a non-alcoholic beer or non-alcoholic wine or a mocktail.
Yeah.
But and it's not necessarily the older generation. I think it's also younger generations, as you said, I think are starting to make that switch.
Oh, yeah. And it definitely helps that there's alternatives now, especially in Canada and whatnot. It's like, it, when are you someone where when you set your mind to something that you're like really determined, do you waver or do you struggle with
No,
discipline?
no. I'll give you an example. So I read this book by Audrey Marcus, and I want to say it's called "Own the Day, Own Your Life." And he
Hmm.
walks through the whole day and ways that you can optimize your day. And
Hmm.
then if you do that for the full day, then obviously, and repeat it, it'll improve your life. And so a great example of this is I have he has a thing called the morning cocktail, and I implemented it into my daily routine, where it's a 12 ounces of filtered water, a quarter of lemon, and it's like 3 grams of pink Himalayan sea salt. So I have that every morning. And
Wow.
it's to the point where I try to get my wife to do it, but she's like, once you're on it, like I have, ever since I did it, like started 2 years ago, I've never gone one morning. I'll travel with a
Mm.
container or with lemons and salt to make my own. I will never like sway from something I set my mind to. And like she always jokes like, I'm gonna have you buried with that shaker, of your little mocktail,
Yeah.
because she's like,
Yeah.
you will, even if you didn't want to do it anymore, you will do it just to spite me, for the rest of your life. I was like, yes, because I am disciplined. I'm gonna make it happen. So yeah, it's 100% very disciplined. When I set my mind to something, it's just there's no turning back. I've made the decision,
Yeah.
and go with it.
I admire that. And to your point earlier, when you said, I don't know how candidacy happened, I've said, I know how it happened. And I literally think that it was because of you said, I want to make first round candidacy, right?
Well, I wanted to, but I mean, that was way harder because there's so many things
Yeah.
out of your control, because
Oh, I
and I
know.
feel like it's so subjective because I mean, it just depends on, how he feels that day, because what is his rubric for switching over to say, yep, this teeters over
Mhm.
to candidacy versus no, Bailey's is not good for candidacy because of X. There's no like, it's not like a checklist, it's objective
Yeah.
rubric.
Yeah. So for everyone listening, Jeff and I are in the same doctorate of education and learning and organizational change. And that's where we met. And I'm actually wondering because for everyone in our program is older. I mean, older is also a subjective word, but I mean, like, I think everyone's 30 plus for the most part, and probably mostly like 40s, 50s.
Mhm.
Um, what made you decide to go back to school?
So, you know, one thing in the military is we call PME, professional military education. Um, every rank you hit, you have to continuous. It's just continuous education. So, I went in. I came in as an officer, so you go through what's called officer's basic course, so OBC, and that trains you on your your military occupation of service. So I
Mm,
came in as an artillery officer, so you go through 6 months of basically learning how to be an artillery officer. Then that's just a second lieutenant. As a captain, you go through what's called captain's career course.
mhm,
And then after captain's career course, once you pin major, you go through what's called ILE, which is the leadership education, which really teaches you about how to operate on a staff level. Because now you're above company grade, and now you're operating on a staff level.
mhm.
And so, and as a major to make lieutenant colonel, you have to have your master's degree. It's kind of a unwritten thing. Like if you don't have
I
your
didn't know
master's
that.
degree, it's tough to make lieutenant colonel. And so, along with ILE, I was doing my master's degree in international relations. And so, because I was very much in the vogue of what I was doing, working as a strategist. So, and then after that, it's kind of like, well, I could go get another master's degree, but I mean,
Mm.
that just doesn't make sense. It's like having two lawnmowers. Like one's good enough, like you don't need two.
Once, yeah,
So,
one's
uh,
good enough.
yeah,
Yeah.
you have one, and so, but you could take a step up and get
Mhm,
something different. So, I was like, let me look at going for my doctorate. And but when I came into the program, it was completely different topic of what I had focused on. I won't say I wasn't serious about it, but I was like, I thought it was going to be very similar to like my master's degree going through, where I won't say check. It's kind of a check the block. Do your assignments, do your papers,
mm,
do the classes. Dissertation is kind of like your capstone thesis, and you're just going to kind of hack away at it, and then you're done. This
mhm.
is definitely not what I thought it was,
Mm.
but
It's very different, I
um,
know.
but yeah, and so that's why as my topic changed, and so it was definitely, I mean, I don't know, it just kind of seemed to be the next logical step. It's like, well, I have my master's degree, I could stop here, but I want to keep pursuing. And as well as at that time, I was very, it's funny how your motives change, but at that time I was like very focused on, all right, I got to go to the next, I got to climb,
Mhm,
I got to move forward, I got to climb the ladder, I got to keep climbing.
mm,
How can I set myself apart from peers? What can set me apart, make me look better, stack my
mm.
resume for certain things. And so that was the other indirect reason why I went for the doctorate.
Oh man, I mean that like that I think you're really inspiring to a lot of folks. But I am curious, what did you come in with? Cuz I kind of know where you are now, but when it was like years ago at this point when you probably
Yeah.
applied, what did you first think you were going to be researching?
So when I applied, I was actually applying while I was in an Army course called the a force management course,
Mm-hmm.
and that's basically it's a 4 month course teaching you basically how the Army runs and how do we develop and modernize the Army. And
Oh,
so, a hot topic at the time, still is today, is the Army's recruiting crisis. So, that was what I
right.
focused on as my problem statement was because it's just, I was also in class, while I was filling out the application, I'm in class listening to that topic. So it's like, it just kind of resonated at the time. I was like, I'll just go. I mean, it's a logical problem. I'll just go with this.
Mm-hmm. And what was it like coming back as well, I was gonna say like we all come back as adult learners and we have things on the go now, like you said, like, your kid, a kid on the way, all these other things going on. But when you did your master's, were you also an adult learner then? I
So
guess
I haven't
again,
stopped because it seems like for the
yeah.
past 6 years, because, even in that course, I was having to do 20-page essays. I was in the Army course. I was having to
Mm.
do uh,
Mm.
5-page essays and tests. And, so along my military career path, I've had to complete essays and I've had to do, assignments. And so it was almost, I hadn't really had a break because I was just actually, I was procrastinating from doing an essay to fill out my application for my doctoral program. So,
Mhm.
in the military, you're kind of always going through that educational process. So
Mhm.
I hadn't ever really been when I was doing my master's degree, a lot of essays for that type of degree. Whenever I did ILE for the Army, it was the same thing. It was also international relations related. So you're writing papers about strategy,
Mhm.
about military strategy, about operational
Mhm.
approaches, and so you're kind of already in the swing of things, filling out or doing essays and writing. So it wasn't a major switch. If anything, just I had to switch from uh, actually just like to APA, which I am not a fan of, but that's just the academic style. So going from very blunt, bluff type military writing
Mhm.
to, I don't want to say fluff, but adding a little more context to certain things that you normally wouldn't.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing when that writing still comes out in your speech, like the blunt bluff writing, because it makes me laugh when these military metaphors or language still comes up in how you speak every day, like to our profs and whatnot.
Oh yeah, that
Jeff
was
will be like,
the low
"What's the
threat.
objective?" Or what was
The
what was
one
the
the
other
one
one?
at immersion was what was it?
Yeah.
I was telling somebody this the other day because I did not even know this was not like a terminology that other people use, but we were talking about the defense, the dissertation defense, and I was just I was able to lucky enough my mentor let me watch his,
Mhm.
and it was so beneficial for me because I realized this is not as big as what I guess built it up to be and
Mhm.
imagine it to be. So I was telling the class and I was like, it's very low threat.
Oh,
And
yeah,
everybody just starts laughing and I'm like, I thought they were laughing because I said it was not a big deal, but then come to find out they're laughing because of the term low threat, which is it's just I guess that's not a term that's not terminology used very often. And I've
No.
heard it since then in the in meetings and stuff where yeah, hey guys, this is low threat, no big deal. It's just like I
Oh
guess
my
that's not
gosh.
something that people use
That's
very
like
often.
that yeah, it makes me laugh too because it's like what also makes me question, are you trained to see the threats everywhere you go?
Oh yeah. Well, because that's what you're trained to do is looking for that. I mean, I was a targeting officer
Hmm.
for a long time, and so yeah, you're trained to be looking for threats, and so it's just, I guess, in the military, it's just such part of the vernacular, so
Mm,
much so that, like I said, we're about to go brief a 2-star, and it's like, hey, it's this is very low threat. Like the guy will start it off, hey, low threat, no,
mm,
don't worry about it. Because just again, it's part of the vernacular
mhm.
of what you're about to walk into. You'll kind of get that I guess that preface of what you're about to do. So it's high threat.
Mhm.
This is he's brutal. Whenever you brief him, he'll destroy you. He'll tear into you. Like so, you'll have those type of guys you'll brief. So, or it's low threat. Like you just again, it's part of the
Yeah.
vernacular.
Is that exhausting though? Like, do you go into social situations now or are you able to like keep it in your work or do you go into personal situations looking for threats or looking for exits or something like that?
You always do. I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say it's funny coming right out of deployments and stuff. I think it's a little more
Mhm.
because you'll have like the ghost, like where's my weapon type thing, because you're just so used to having it for 8 to 10 to 12 months. But threats wise, I mean you go through courses, you go through trainings to always be looking for that stuff. I mean, even annually, we'll have to go through threat assessment programs that we have to do, and so it's so when you're going
Wow.
to a hotel, when you book a hotel, you have to you want to choose specific rooms. You don't want to go be near, you want to be near an
Wow.
exit. You get like there's things that they tell you to look for. So it's I don't know. I feel more safe just having that thing. So it's almost, if I'm not doing that, or I'm in a situation where I don't have that control, that's where I get a
Mm.
little uncomfortable. So,
Wow, I've never really thought about it like that before, but I can see how that would it's has both sides. Like if I were in a situation in a hotel or something is happening, I would hope that I was with you. At the same time, I'm almost glad that I have like the ignorance is bliss, because when you say like you do, you just see it. I'm like I don't see it. I don't see the world in threats like that.
mhm,
Maybe that will be my downfall someday, but I can see how when you're in the military, you're literally saying like that's training that you have to do all the time. I would
yeah,
worry. That like makes me feel bad though for people when they leave the military, how they view the. Does it affect how you view the world?
oh yeah. I mean, and whether you're in the military or not, I've talked to people like that are in the Peace Corps, and I've even done humanitarian assistance, and when you kind of see the worst of
Mm.
society or the worst of humanity, it definitely, it opens your eyes to certain things, and it changes your perspective, because especially I would say in America, we're very fortunate to be in the fish bowl that we are on, because as like a lot of people in America there's no reason to go anywhere because we have everything in America. So there's no reason to
Mm.
travel, or a lot of guys don't travel. So
Oh,
when you
that's
don't,
sad. Yeah.
I know, so they just don't get to see a lot of stuff, and the good and the bad. So
Mm.
I feel fortunate to, I feel it's a fortunate aspect that I've gotten to see more of humanity, and it does definitely change your perspective of things. I don't want to say
Mhm.
it makes you hate society or hate people. I would say that's a common misconception, and I
Mm.
would say it definitely does. I can't say it's not true. You start to develop kind of a more of a um, a second guessing of certain
Mm.
things, because whenever that trust has been broken, it's no different when you're in a relationship and you've been burned. Now you're going into the next relationship,
Mm.
and you're like, okay, now you've got baggage going into it. So same thing, whenever you've seen the worst of humanity, you're kind of like, it's sometimes it's very, you're not, I'm always jealous of my 4-year-old that sees certain things,
Mm.
and it's like she doesn't understand. It's just kind of, it's just different.
Yeah, well, that's probably a great example though of how you kind of have to think through what is this training that's kind of been coded into me for years, and how do I want to raise my 4-year-old to see the world? And
Hmm.
I imagine like it's really cool to see the way that you approach it with your kids. Hmm. What so then take us back to the doctorate. What are you researching today? Because you started with the recruitment crisis, which is kind of just interesting in of its
Hmm.
own, but what are you researching today?
So now my focus is on the benefits of psychedelic assisted therapy for veterans with depression. And so how I've had to angle my dissertation is it's a qualitative multiple case study on veterans that have undergone psychedelic assisted therapy that have been diagnosed with depression.
Mm.
And my framework is very focused on the impacts to their immediate and broader environments
Mm.
that they're in. And I did that intentionally because one thing I didn't want is, it's the cliche, every veteran has PTSD. That's not the
Mm.
case.
Okay, so I think this is like all these misconceptions that you're bringing up, I think are interesting, right? So I think I think a lot of people associate PTSD with veterans. So what is the real case?
It's not. I mean, PTSD exists, but I know people that have never been in the military that have PTSD,
That's right,
right?
yeah.
And so it's not. It's as I've gone through this journey, especially for my nonprofit too, working with veterans that have undergone psychedelic assisted therapy, what the biggest thing that I've realized is 99% of what they've gone through, and the trauma that they're dealing with has nothing to do with deployments. And I'm talking,
Oh.
tier one veterans like special operations, Delta, Navy SEALs,
Hmm.
Air Force special operations. I mean, like guys that have been in Purple Hearts, wounded in combat,
Hmm.
and 99% of them that we've dealt with so far have nothing to do. Their trauma that they're dealing with are ancestral, family issues,
Of
issues
course.
more deep rooted. And the problem is, you take somebody like that has those issues,
Mm.
and you put them into a very stressful environment. Yes, you're going to exacerbate those issues in the military, but that doesn't always necessarily lead to PTSD. But PTSD does have different flavors and labels and looks to it. Um,
Mm.
and I think like, oh, you can't sit in a restaurant with your back to the door. You have PTSD. No, that's not the case. I'm just, very cognizant. I feel uncomfortable with my back
Mm.
to an entryway, but I don't have PTSD. And I think the problem is
Mm.
the Hollywood has kind of labeled, veterans. When you hear the word veteran, you immediately follow it with suicidal and PTSD.
Mm.
I see it all the time. So veteran, oh, I've been asked once before. It's like, oh, so you're a veteran. I mean, do you have PTSD? I've been asked
Mhm.
that straight up, and it's just like it's insane that that's the misconception for veterans.
Mhm. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, like I said, I think those things would be linked. But I think what's interesting about your approach and your research and just the way that you think about it and your findings, I think your sort of like practical findings have been that there's usually something first.
Hmm.
And what's also interesting is like the correlation between what is happening with kids in these areas, young kids, young adults, and then why do they seek out the military, or why do they, or like I would love to know like the direction of the correlation there.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, uh, who does the military attract? It doesn't necessarily attract the guy that has a full ride scholarship to Harvard, and he's turning that down to go join the military. There are some that are very passionate and patriotic, but generally speaking, a lot of the soldiers that I've had in the past and those that I've served with, a lot of times it's a family business. So I think it was the
Mm,
last study I
right.
saw, it's like 74% of those that serve have family members that served as well.
Oh wow,
So
yeah. That
because it's
makes
such a
sense. It's just
sub
that's a big number.
well, yeah, because it's such a subculture, like, and when you're in it, you understand it. Or just it's
Mm, so
such a
true.
small. I mean, less than 1% serve. So whenever you look at those numbers and who generally is attracted to, well, when you're graduating high school, you may not have that many options or opportunities. You're in a small town. What is your way out? The Army's saying, hey, I'll pay for your college. I'll
Hmm.
give you a $20,000 signing bonus if you sign today and go into this military occupation of service. I get you out. You can go to Hawaii. You can get stationed in Germany, Hawaii.
Hmm.
It's a way out in a lot of cases. And so,
Hmm.
I like to joke that, I mean, it's the greatest welfare program in the world because they pay for your education, they pay for you, they house you, they clothe you, they give you a purpose, they give you a motivation, they give you an identity, and a lot of times at that
Hmm.
age you're looking for an identity, and now I'm
Yeah.
giving you our identity, I'm giving your values. That we have the 7 core Army values. You've got we're instilling work ethic. We're for men, like, especially for men or women that are looking for some type of crucible to kind of to climb, it's the military. So it gives
Hmm.
you those opportunities. And I mean, it's the most equitable program because you're paid based on your rank, not by the color of your skin and not by your gender. I mean, you're paid based upon everybody, no matter what you do. If you're an E6, you're paid the same. So
Hmm. That's
it's a great
interesting.
opportunity to progress and get out of where you're at. So that was kind of my motivation. You also have to put in context, when I joined, it was right just less than 36 months after 9/11. So there
Mm.
was a lot of patriotism. There's a lot of that global war on terrorism was really kicking off. And I'm 18. I'm young. I
Hmm.
want to jump out of planes. I want to serve my
Mm.
country. So I was. That's kind of where John F. Kennedy's quote, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country," really resonated with me. And again, not to mention my family had served, but
Ah, I see. I was wondering because
mhm.
what circumstances led Jeff to
It
join?
just seemed like the next logical step for me was, my grandfather was in World War II, in the Navy, and my dad went to the Naval Academy, and I was actually on the last steps going to apply for the Naval Academy, especially the Naval Academy Prep School, because my ACT scores were low, so I had to go that route. And my dad sat me down and he's like, "Son, what's 7 times 8?" And after a while of thinking and thinking about how much, what's 7 times 8, he's like, "Son, I think the number one engineer program in the world is not for you. You're dumb. You need to go Army." So
Oh,
I was like,
little
"All right,
Jeff,
Dad, you're
baby
right."
Jeff.
Yeah. I was like, "All right, I'll go Army." And so, because there is an inner rivalry of Army Navy, Navy's full of engineers and Army's
Oh
more,
dear.
they shoot guns. So it's kind of, there's always that inner rivalry of Army Navy. So my dad and I always have that. He's like, "You're dumb. That's why you went Army." And I was like, "I just didn't want to be on a cruise my entire military service. So that's why I went in the Army."
Oh my gosh.
So yeah.
Rude.
Oh yeah.
Now you'll just have to go show him your doctorate and be like, "Sorry, what?"
Oh yeah, he'll have
Sorry.
something against it. He's like, "Well, yeah, it's not like an engineering or something." He'll have some comment. It's just kind of how he shows his love.
Well, yeah. Okay. That's we could get into that one,
Yeah.
but we won't. Um, so then you said you grew up in Oklahoma
Hmm.
and you grew
Small
up
town.
now I can see these circumstances kind of coming together, right? You're part of the 74% with family that
Hmm.
served. I've not spent a lot of time in Oklahoma, but what's the culture like in the city or town that you grew up in?
Yeah. So not we didn't even have a stoplight in my town. So I was only raised in, or I was raised in two towns, one called Walters and the other one, uh, during my eighth grade year. I was 14, graduated high school up in Manford, Oklahoma,
Mhm.
another small town. A lot of my classmates would go to Oklahoma State or Oklahoma University, but generally speaking, a majority of them stayed in town, stayed in state, and that's
Mhm.
very common in Oklahoma. Not many people move to Oklahoma because it's a great vacation spot. I mean, they're moving to Oklahoma because of work primarily.
Mhm.
So they always call it, it's a flyover state. So I loved Oklahoma. Gave me the opportunity to be a big fish in a small pond in the sense of being able to try different things. I played football. I was able to, speech and debate was a big thing for me. Working my way up, even getting scholarship opportunities doing that. But still, it came down to, I don't really know why, other than maybe it was kind of that the patriotism aspect. But my next step was, okay,
Mhm.
graduate high school, boom, immediately going in the military and doing either an academy or going through ROTC to get my degree and get my commission, and then go straight into to serve. So the good thing is I mean, I was graduating in 2008 when the economy was obviously not doing so well, and I had a
Yeah.
guaranteed job right then, and
Yeah.
immediately went to my first unit assignment and deployed right out of there. But it gave me that
Wow, you're such
opportunity
a
for something
baby.
different.
You know,
Oh yeah.
when you speak and it just makes me really think like these are actually kids. Like these are actually babies whose brains aren't even done growing coming out of high school.
Yep.
And it's just like I can't imagine the circumstances that they have to go into, but and also for bad, right? Like for good and for bad because I don't even know if an 18-year-old's like values are set or their beliefs and
Yeah.
they may have to reconcile. How did you reconcile it? Because there's obviously like things that the military does I have to say I don't agree with, right? But when I meet people, I don't I'm not against the people. We're talking about 19-year-olds here who need guidance and probably some support and and to your points and probably family care, and if they had a full ride to Harvard, would this be the choice? I don't know, right? So it's like how do you reconcile things that you're made to do and who you are and your values today?
I mean, it's easy to look back on things that you did before and say, why did, like, it's always easy to do that. But in the moment of it, you know, especially with the way the military runs, like, it's part of your identity. It's, those values are your
Mhm.
values, and you're trained and you're told not, I mean, you're not trained to disobey or, second guess or
Mhm.
question orders. Obviously those that are not moral, you question, which, luckily I was never in a position to have to question like my leadership from a moral standpoint.
Mhm.
Not, I didn't always agree with some of the statements or some of the decisions made, but, and I've had toxic leaders, I've had phenomenal leaders. I mean, my first
Mhm.
squadron commander when I got there, Lieutenant Colonel Mike Foster, by far the most amazing leader I have ever had, and just still to
Mhm.
this day was just a quality leader, and he just had a presence about him that you just wanted to run through a brick wall for. And so, I think when you have leadership like that, and it also goes to show, uh, you know doesn't really, because at the end of the day it doesn't really matter the mission and what's going on. You're doing it for the guy next to you, and you're doing it because you're in a brotherhood. You're in, you're in with those others that you're being led by quality leaders. So when that happens, it doesn't really matter, and you're kind of able to go along those paths.
Mhm. That's hard. And also, it just goes to show how important and how luck, like it's sometimes just down to luck. Like, who is
It
your
is,
leader
yeah. Who's your
and
leader?
how do
And
they
like,
treat you? And that kind of frames these kids' values for their life. Like,
yeah, and Colonel Foster, I'll still, I mean, never forget when he does you do your initial counseling with your senior leader when you come into an organization and sit you down. You're just a young second lieutenant. You barely know how to tie your boots, and he's working with you, and he just sits you down, and never forget the two things he said was, his two main points are do good, avoid evil, and there's a yes out there somewhere. Never come tell me no. And that always kind of resonated with me because it has become a pet peeve of mine when those that work for me are coming to me like, sir, we can't make this happen. And I'm like, well, what can you make happen? Because I put out
yeah.
basically the intent is to have this, and
Mhm.
if that doesn't work, then show me what does. And that's
Mhm.
what he's saying is like, there's a yes out there somewhere. Just never come tell me no. And like, the example he gave was at the Ranger Ball there, that they hold annually. The operations officer came out into the corral of other cubicles and was like, guys, I want the president to speak at the Ranger Ball, make it happen. And then he just went back in his office. So they could have called and tried to make it happen, and then gone into his office and said, hey, we can't get the president. Well, that's not the intent. What they
Mhm.
ended up doing is, at that time, they actually got Tom Hanks to come in and speak, because Saving Private Ryan was very popular at that time.
Mhm.
And but last minute, Dick Cheney, the vice president, called and was going to make it. So
Oh
again,
yeah.
because they kept trying, they looked for the yes. There's a yes out there. Go find it. And so that was that always resonated with me, especially working on staff. Was, when the leadership puts out, they may not have all the answers, but they know the intent, they know the big picture. So when they give guidance and direction, just keep that in mind and always try to achieve yes somehow. So
Mhm.
that was always something that resonated with me. And I just, I knew that how lucky I was to have somebody like that as my first major kind of influence in my career.
Mhm. In another way, I really like that way of wording it, but in another way, what I would say to my own team is around resourcefulness and is around trying not to try to bring solutions,
Yeah,
or to
exactly.
your point, like to like never just come with the problem.
Exactly.
And this
Yeah.
is
Come
when
with
we teach
answers,
it
not
even.
problems.
Yeah, when we even teach it in organizations, we'll say like that is a common thing that comes up about early talent. And sometimes it's well-meaning. It's just like I just don't want to do it the wrong way. It's
Hmm.
like then don't do it the wrong way.
Exactly.
Ask about doing it another way.
Yep. Exactly.
Think that through, right? And so for you, what lessons did the military teach you that you carry with you every day still? Like what are some of the lessons that you live by in your day-to-day?
Hmm.
Let's start
Sure.
with some of the good.
The good. Great questions. I think um, stress, how to handle stressful situations, time management. I mean, I was always my mom's from Cuba. She was always very strict on time. So time management wasn't a major issue for me going into the military like it is for some, but I would say that definitely has carried over. If you're on time, you're late, is something that has always kind of resonated with me. But I think how to handle stressful situations and looking at the bigger picture of things is probably my two major takeaways. I've been through some very stressful situations. I've gone through some training that, like, even, SEER school, for example, which is survival, evade, resistance, escape. They torture you, they beat you.
Oh,
You're locked
geez.
in boxes. You're going through all this
Mm,
stuff, and so you're putting yourself through some crucibles where, you know, it could always be worse. And so, you kind of, now coming into the civilian side, you're looking at different aspects, and I don't know, you can kind of take a step back and be like, it could always be worse. I've been through worse situations.
mhm.
And I think being able to assess problems is a job that we naturally have to do as a planner in the Army. So I think planning is, like my wife always says, like, I'm a master planner. Like, I over plan everything. Like, even our move, I did the move ourselves from DC to here, and I have everything color coded. I have box tape, or like, I had a con op, I had a PowerPoint
Perfect.
presentation of, like, here's what we do, here's how we're phasing it. Like, I very into that
Sounds
aspect.
like
So
some tactical operations.
it
Where are you
was
now?
in North Carolina.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Y'all, I actually saw this with Jeff in action because you remember when we were at immersion, which for everyone, that's just when, because we're in a hybrid program, we go together, all together in person in the campus, every so often. And when we were there we shared the same supervisor, and you were trying to work out how you're going to change your research in the right ways in order to make candidacy. And you somehow found the only whiteboards in the room. And then you had our supervisor standing in front of the whiteboards. And I swear you had like a battle plan on this whiteboard about how you're going to make candidacy.
Basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I would say, I mean, that's got to be the the number one takeaway I had, is just how to plan, how to execute, how to assess, how to look at things. It's just, I don't know. Those are, as I've gone higher up in rank, I've really been afforded the ability to be put in stressful situations, and situations where I need to execute, or I need to develop a plan to get out of this.
Mm,
So I think it's a huge benefit that I had.
yeah. On the other side of things, what were lessons or habits or, ways of being that you had to very consciously leave behind when you transitioned to civilian life, where you're like, you know what, that doesn't serve me anymore. I gotta drop that.
I would say something that, that brought me to the psychedelic assisted therapy
Mm,
was my inability to not to my inability to cut away, or my inability to not always have to be over planning, because I've been put in situations where I must have a plan. You got to have this, and you got to have what we call branch planning or sequel planning. So
mm,
if not, then you do this. What if? Then you do this. So we're continuously, always, every plan you have, every plan you have your branch and your sequel planning. So if this happens, then what? And then if that happens, then what? So you have to continuously have different courses of action, 3 courses of action for every plan. And so I'm always living that, and that can sometimes get overwhelming on the civilian side, to
mm.
where it
I could
takes you
see
away
that.
from being present. You're never present. You're always in the future. You're always thinking in the future.
Hmm.
So you're never truly present. And I saw that with my wife, with my, how I was kind of operating just as a husband and father. And so I think that could be, it's where you're taking it, I want to say, to the extreme, but you're overthinking things. And so while planning is great and having plans for certain things, I just never, I struggled with being present. And so it was kind of hard to enjoy
Mm,
being present. And so, which led me down to being depressed in some
mm.
aspects, where I could never be present. I could never be happy, because I'm always thinking in the future. So, and I have to
Interesting.
climb,
Yeah.
like I went back to earlier, like I have to climb the ladder. I have to do this, what's next? It's like I'm always thinking about, okay, I make it here. Now I'm thinking about here.
Mhm.
I made it to the second step. Now I'm already thinking about the third.
Like
And so I can
arrival
never
fallacy,
truly,
yeah.
yeah, it's like I'm going to go out, and then now I can't wait to go out. Now that I'm out, I can't wait to go here. And when I'm here, I can't wait to go there. It was just this
Mhm.
vicious circle.
Yeah, I could see that. And is this circle what brought you to psychedelics?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
So I,
tell us about that. And there's a different segment. There's actually a different segment for everybody. And for yours, I just had to choose Lost in Thought, where guests can kind of get into personal
mhm.
stories or experiences about what we're talking about. And this one just seems perfect for you because I would love to know about your story about how you found psychedelics and how they helped you.
So, uh, when I was going through ILE, like I told you before, in my master's degree, I, you know, I say I was having trouble concentrating, which really wasn't the case, but
Mm.
I said what I needed to get when I said what I needed to say in order to get Adderall.
Okay.
Adderall, I tell people it's a performance enhancing drug. It is amazing. It is a great drug. I mean, it's legalized meth,
Oh, wow.
and
Yeah.
I mean it's basically what it is. I got a lot accomplished on it. I did a lot with it, but it exacerbated my ability to, or my inability to be present, and I was continuously always thinking
Oh,
forward leaning, and so much so that I know, like, my wife could tell when in the morning when I had taken my Adderall, because I'm just, I'm rattling
yeah.
off like, hey, what about this? And, what if we do that? And I'm just continuously thinking, and I can't ever be present. And so it got me into that, again, that vicious cycle. And, but I was already in, but with Adderall, it just sped it up,
Mm.
and so then I'm just to where I'm constantly on that wheel, to where if I ever took a break from Adderall, I was a zombie. We call it a NAD, like no Adderall day, where it was a struggle to even get off the couch because I'm off meth
Oh,
basically, and
wild,
I'm
wild.
struggling to just do anything. And so then I don't have alcohol, or alcoholism, or addiction in my family. I do believe, like, I was dependent on
Hmm.
Adderall, and so I kind of made a conscious decision with talking with one of my friends, and now my business partner in our nonprofit. He was on his own journey, way further than I was, really going down the path of, seeking alternative medicine and looking at alternative ways to heal the body and heal the person and heal the psyche. And so that kind of led him down the path of the psychedelic assisted therapy. So, he I've been connected with him for a long time, and so he just offered it up to me. It was just more of a target of opportunity. I didn't think I needed it at the time.
Hmm.
I was so, I don't need it because I'm focused on this. And then once I do this, I'm going to do this job for 6 months, and I'm going to go take this. I'm going to climb, and I'm going
Mm.
to climb this ladder. And so I was just, I did say, I did know I needed to be present,
Hmm.
but that was it. And so he's like, you want to come, on this journey with me? And I was like, yeah, I'll go. You know what? I'll try it out. So I ended up going with him to go down to try this psychedelic assisted therapy. We started working with a therapist, and we got the opportunity. It was an opportunity of a lifetime. It was he and I and two others that were especially in the tier one level in the military, and we all just decided to, for our own different reasons, to go down and try it. So I had the opportunity, and I can't express to you how different things have been since. So
Mm.
my my experiences with 5-MeO DMT, and as I was going under. So if you're not familiar with 5-MeO DMT, it's not synthetic. It's actually taken from the frog
Mm.
down by the shaman down in Mexico. It's the venom from a toad, and it is the most powerful hallucinogen in the world. It lasts no more than 5 to 10 minutes,
Wow.
but it is very powerful. It is
Hmm.
overly powerful. And the reason why it's great is because people that may white knuckle certain things and, like, I'm not ready to talk about that or face that, it's, the it's called bufo, forces you to face it. So bufo does not give you the opportunity to white knuckle and say no.
What is
So
bufo?
it's the Spanish name for the 5-MeO-DMT.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, so that's the chemical compound, but it's called sapo, it's called bufo, it's called the God molecule. There's different
Hmm,
names for it.
interesting.
But when I went under, I remember, you remember some of it, but not all. And again, I was only under less than 5 minutes. But
Wow.
apparently, for the first minute, I started to scream, "Stop! No, I'm not ready. I'm not. Stop! No, no, no."
Hmm.
And for 60 seconds, I was just screaming no because I was losing control. And I remember thinking, Jeff, you're losing control, and that's what's freaking you out. And that's the medicine showing you that, which is what you need to see. But I get it. I'm not. Nope. I get it, but I'm not ready. Stop. 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 But once you're going down the hill, there's no turning back. And for 60 seconds, I was fighting it, trying to fight it. No, stop, no. And then they said after 60 seconds, I just broke. It
Hmm.
went limp, and then broke out into the largest smile and put my hands behind my head and then laid there. And then 90 seconds later, I woke up and said, I get it now. None of this matters, and there's nothing I can do about it. And I remember still to this day seeing one of the shaman's faces, and it's this peaceful smile with his fingers crossed, and he was just looking down because we were laying down, and it was just a feeling of like, and welcome to the other side.
Hmm.
It just kind
Oh,
of
I
made me
get that.
realize like it's all a matrix. This is not reality. Like none of this. It just was such a hit where you're like, none of this none of this matters. There's so many things that I have put so much of my blood, sweat, and tears into that doesn't matter. And it was such like a profound, impact that still took months of working with an integrator after to realize like, what I was doing,
Mhm.
why I wasn't present, why none of this really matters. And, which was bittersweet too, because I had placed so much of my identity and who I was in the military.
Mhm.
Like I'm military, I'm a planner, I'm an officer, and then when you kind of peel that back, well, now who are you? Well, I'm from Oklahoma. Okay, well, so you start to realize things were placed on you to build your identity. So then when
Yeah.
you kind of start, peeling back that onion, who are you? Which I had like an ego dissolution from that, where it was they call an ego fracture. But when I saw that we're all, and I remember seeing everything kind of collapsing down to this one vibration into like a tungsten molecule ball,
Mhm.
and everything. It was like all the history of humanity just, and then into like a vibration, a frequency into this ball, and then zooming back out made me realize like we're all the same. We're all one. You and I are the same. We're all from the
Mhm.
same thing.
Mm.
And it just was such a powerful realization that it took me some time to sit with after and work with an integrator, because I was like, my perspective of everything changed.
You
Like
know what? That
climbing.
is just encouraging to hear that you do that this service at the time provided integrators, because that's something that I've seen too, where basically you change someone's perspective, you alter their perspective so
Mhm.
dramatically, right? You would think it was in that 5 to 10 minutes, but actually the perspective shift lasts really for maybe the rest of their life.
It
So
does. Yeah. And that's why, now that we're working with this as a nonprofit, we tell people do not make any major life decisions immediately following, because
yeah, that's
you're
so
going to
true.
be on, because people will get divorces, people will quit their jobs. We've seen that. And so we're very particular, like, hey, don't make any major life decisions.
Hmm.
And I could see why, because as I went through, I realized like the military provided so much value to me, but it was no longer an identity for me. It was no
Hmm.
longer, because at the end of the day, does it matter? Like at the end of the day, it's a job. At the end of the day, like I have to climb this ladder and get this job and get this assignment to make sure I make this rank. And then at the end of the day, does it matter? and seeing Matt's face was like, and welcome to the other side. It's like,
Mhm.
I then all of a sudden got like why Buddha the way he was, why, like those that are enlightened are like, I see why, like, cause I felt it. And like, I see why
Yeah.
because there's nothing you can do about it. Things are going to continue the way they are. I remember thinking like, I want my, at the time, 3-year-old daughter to do this right now because
Oh,
I want her to not go through life thinking
oh.
things matter that don't, and the shaman said
I
something
see
so
that, but
good.
maybe she won't have to because you did, and that's kind of one of the beautiful things about this is it's not just healing for the person, it's weirdly generational healing because you're going to be able to provide her that perspective that you have now. That experience was a long time ago, but the perspective stayed.
Yeah. And our shaman and Yaki, one thing he said that he's like, when I told him that, I was like, I want my daughter to experience this now. I want everybody I know to go through this now. And he said the way you can share the medicine is through love. you
That's
know
right.
Give that
Mhm.
love, and that's how you can share the medicine. And I definitely looked at things completely different when I got back. My purpose in life changed. I realized how selfish I was, and why I didn't want to continue growing my family. It was because I just wanted time to myself, and I wanted to climb my ladder. So then, that led to, obviously, my wife and I. Now we have our second kid coming, and my purpose with my doctorate. And now it's like I had a purpose. I realized there was really no purpose with my doctorate before. I was just doing
Yeah, it was the outcome you wanted, not the
yeah, I was
process.
like,
Mhm.
exactly. And then it just kind of made me realize, like, again, my purpose and my mission, even serving in the military, I can continue to serve in the military because I now have a new purpose. I now am very people focused and wanting to help them grow and see their way to where they want to go. And then for my nonprofit, my goal is to bring others to see what I saw when I saw Matt's face of like, I want them to see the other side. I want them to
Peace.
see that, yeah, there's something else. Like if you can just get there, there's another way to look at it, and realize like all this it's not reality. I mean, it's like the Matrix. There's when you see it and you feel it, it's easy to talk about it, but when you feel it, you're just like,
Exactly. We're taking listeners pretty far, but if in a very simple way, all that you are taking in this moment is because of your perspective, what you are able to physically capture with eyes and hands and all these sorts of things. And if you've ever had a perspective altering experience in any way, even beyond psychedelics, then like if you even go and look at a funny mirror, and if all
mhm,
you ever saw was funny mirrors your whole life, that is what you would think that the world looked like, right?
yep,
So with the perspective altering experience, I find that one of the things that's really stuck with me is that there is a reality that is there an objective reality? I this is like big thoughts, people. So just think this through with us, okay? If there's an objective reality that's kind of like imagine like floating there in between us right now, we only have so many senses that are able to interpret the data of that reality. But a dog or a dolphin or other living things are able to interpret that very differently. But is it the same objective reality? So with this, it's like when you say nothing matters, it's also what I take from that is kind of it's everyone should look into like an optimistic nihilism of sorts, which is actually an empowering thing, even though I just used the
mhm,
word nihilism, because it's like nothing matters except for the meaning we give it.
yes.
And you can give the meaning. It's like nothing and everything matters at the same time.
Yeah,
So but
when I
one thing
said
I
nothing
need to know.
matters, it was like I saw is the things that I put energy into doesn't matter. Like that stuff
At the
doesn't. And
time,
it's
right.
yeah, I was so focused on that, and so that's what I mean by like, none of that matters. None of this matters. None of the day-to-day things you think are like this, like the stuff you put energy into matters, and it's like, so
For you at
so
the time, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I see. And this nonprofit, does it have a name yet?
Yes, Team Sapo.
Teams?
Yes.
That's great.
So Team Sapo actually, it's SAPO, and we're doing a play on the words also because it's the Scientific Association of Psychedelic Operators is what
Right.
SAPO can also stand for. So that's it's our nonprofit.
Mhm.
And that kind of spawned from our SOPO experience
Mhm.
by those of us that did that journey.
Yeah.
Sean, my business partner, he was on a completely different journey than I was, and we both came and saw each other. We're like, we both had the same kind of envision moving forward,
Yeah.
where we need to grow. We need to grow people. We need to grow,
Yeah.
food, quality food. We need to grow, from developing a micro school or building out a retreat. We need to heal
Mm.
people. Like we need to bring others to that path. And so we both in our own ways had the same kind of experience coming to, like, where our our way forward
Mm.
completely changed.
And I think it's super cool. I know that we've talked about it before and all that can be done here. I think this is just the beginning, right? Really, I mean, there was a beginning to this world of psychedelic assisted therapy, and then it was
Hmm.
stopped, and
It's
now
yeah,
we're back at our second start here. And
it's nothing new, and that's where a lot of the guys that I've talked to that are coming into our program are, you know I've had some that are on
mm,
multiple prescriptions,
mm,
pharmaceuticals, SSRIs from the VA, and they're not themselves. They're not,
mm,
which kind of leads towards what I write about in my dissertation about treatment resistant depression, and that's when they're resisting, and that the antidepressants aren't working, and so they get into that vicious cycle, and a majority of them, the pharmaceuticals aren't working,
mhm,
and it
mhm,
completely changes who you are. And now, because of what you're on, you have to take another thing to counteract
mm,
one of your other prescriptions, and then you realize, then you try to resort to alcohol because it's such a common thing to resort to. So that's why
yeah,
in our program we don't want you drinking alcohol.
mhm,
We work on titrating you. We have docs on our staff that we work on titrating you off of your pharmaceuticals, because we want to bring you to who
totally.
your core true self
Wow.
is. And so, we also partnered with an organization called Origin Medical. And, because we also want to look at the person as an avatar, as that from the physiological self, because I can work on you from a
Mm,
psychological perspective.
interesting.
But if you're still coming back to, there's a thing called operator syndrome, and some guys, especially in tier one, have, where dealing with high adrenaline, high TBIs and whatnot. All of that can cause, can hurt your testosterone,
Mhm,
mess up with your hormones, and really unbalance you chemically. So if I can first look at you and work with you, partnering with Origin Medical on getting lab works done, finding out where you're deficient, supplementing where need be, working on inflammation in the brain, working on actually working on your hormones, working on getting you balanced, then you're already going to start to see mood enhancements. Your
mm.
testosterone goes up. You're going to see benefits to your sleep,
What a beautiful thing.
everything. And then once we get you at that point, then we start working with our therapists and getting you into a program, one of our ceremonies that we'll travel to, and that is, now we're addressing the psychological piece,
Mhm,
and then the third wing that we've addressed is the social piece, and this kind of ties back to my dissertation, where really impacting that immediate and broader environment. So as Team Sapo grows, the next step we want to also bring in is supporting working on the home front, the
mhm.
spouse. I mean, a service member may have served 15, 20 years, and they've had to deal, a spouse has had to deal with that alongside the veteran.
Wow, that's really
What
wise.
treatment do they get? So, we want to heal the spouse as well, and heal the family, as a one unit dynamic, because it's all one. So, we've been growing our staff. We've got psychotherapists, we've got PAs, we've got some
Yeah,
top, even some PhDs that out now. Once I finish, we're going to be working on research to try to provide more research to the body
right.
of psychedelic assisted therapy. But I mean, it's been interesting to see some of the change that some of these guys have gone through. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm talking guys that come in that have just, I mean, you could just physically see that they're weighed down. They're
Mm.
saying that there's a doom lingering over them and they can't explain it. And, they just kind of walk around with that. And, after we work with them and post ceremonies, they just don't even look the same. Like they
Yeah.
literally physically, their face, everything looks different because they've changed. They see things differently. They are
Mm.
on a different path. And that's why, and again, they're away from alcohol. They're away from the pharmaceuticals that change who you are,
Mhm.
all of that.
It's just like, ugh, I just want to be like, just try it,
Hmm.
just try it. And then if it doesn't work, you can go back to what you were doing, right? Like, it's worth a try, though. Okay. So, as we are coming closer to the end of our podcast, I like to do a thought experiment with everybody on here and really get us exploring a different idea or consequences, possibilities, not constrained to reality. And so I put one together for you that combines a few of the things that I know about you. So we've got, I called it the ideal offboarding program for veterans. And we're combining kind of that military veteran exercise, but also the fact that you're a doctorate of education. And I happen to know that you've taken instructional design courses and all of these things. So I want you to imagine
Don't quiz
that.
me.
No, definitely not. I want you to imagine you've been given full control over creating the ultimate offboarding program for veterans returning to civilian life. And you have unlimited resources, and you can incorporate both traditional and innovative approaches to ensure veterans are well prepared and supported as they transition. Off the top of your head, what should be included in this program?
So I have a great perspective of this because I've offboarded from the military, so I
I
understand the
thought you
current.
might.
Yeah, so I currently understand the process, but I will say, and I want to say that the current process they have is good, in respect of helping the veteran find a job. It's very focused on that. Resume
Oh,
write. You go
okay.
through resume writing. You can even go through job fairs. You can go through, especially if you're more senior ranking, you can go through what's called a skill bridge program, where
Hmm.
for 4 months you can actually go work at a company, getting paid by the Army, working for that company, and in a lot of cases, then you basically, once you take off your uniform, you put on a suit, and you go work for that company. So there's a lot of opportunities like that. So because the Army has learned, I mean, that it has a bad reputation in veterans, leaving the service.
Hmm.
So I will say the Army, in a lot, I say the Army. I can't speak for all. I'm sure the rest probably even do a better job than the Army does. But
Oh, I didn't realize it
um,
was so different
yeah,
from
it
my
may or may
perspective. I thought they kind of offboarded all the same. So that's
they
interesting.
could. I honestly have zero clue how Navy or Air Force does it.
Oh,
But
wow.
I can only speak from the
Hmm.
Army. But the way the Army does it's called a SFL, Soldier for Life. It's SFL TAP, Soldier for Life Transition Assistance Program. We have to do an acronym for everything in the military, but
Yeah.
it's a great program, but it's mandatory. You're required to go. Now, I say all that because I think the two aspects that I do not believe it does well on is mentorship and physical and mental wellness. What it does
Mm,
do is it
cool.
basically says that the rep from the VA comes in and is like, hey, here's what you need to know. Here's the numbers. Basically, here's our resources. Reach out if you have issues, And so, at least when I went through, that's kind of what it was. I'm sure it's gotten a little better, but
Okay,
not to the
let's think
extent.
blue sky though. Let's like blue sky. What if
Yes.
they're exiting off this ideal offboarding program and you can be like a wizard and put it into place? What's
So
happening?
if I was a wizard, and what I believe is, like I said, I wanted to give at least the
That's
viewers an
very
understanding
nice.
of
I actually
what
didn't know
currently
that stuff.
happens. So yeah, go through SFL TAP. But so I think a lot of that is key and necessary. However, I believe you should be also part. If I could dream, it would be partnered with a therapist or counselor,
Hmm.
partnered with a physical trainer or dietitian, um,
Right.
and
Cool.
and also a mentor in the the field that you plan on going into, whether it be sales or banking or
Hmm.
whatever the case may be. You're paired with a mentor for 6 months, working with
Mm,
that person to transition. Because when I came out, boom, you're out, and it's like you're going from
yeah.
one extreme culture to civilian society, and how do you act, how do you operate, how does this company go, you don't really know. And so I believe, one, having a quality mentor to be able to guide and advise that person all the way through, almost like a life coach in a sense,
Mhm.
being able to support that person. And then a counselor, a dietitian, and a personal trainer, because I would say one thing I've noticed is a lot of people neglect their physical aspect, that you may be on it as a in the
Hmm.
military, but once you come off, that's probably when you need it the most, because you
Wow,
don't want to
yeah.
become stagnant. You don't want to become, you don't want to go down that path. We always joke, like, every military, they always gain 15 to 20 pounds when they leave. So once they get their out processing paperwork. But I would say
That
if I
probably
had the
does affect
dream,
their mental health and their view of themselves. Like, it's all together. I
yes,
love
because
that.
yeah,
Everyone
that's
I love
that's how
that
I
for
would,
them.
if I could dream it out. It's that one-on-one. You get a counselor, you get a life coach or a
Mhm.
mentor in the industry that you're going to be working in, and you get a dietitian slash a personal trainer
Mm,
with quality, like, paid for access to, like, they
cool.
have like LinkedIn, you get like so many months free as a veteran, all this stuff. Like, you should also have that for their transition out. Like, if again, it's if I could dream it out, it would be
No, we're
nice.
dreaming. We're dreaming. We're trying not to limit our perspective here. One thing you didn't say, out of curiosity, was would everyone be offered a psychedelic experience?
I It depends. I don't. I
Yeah.
guess I'm not. The other aspect with psychedelic experience, I believe everybody would benefit from it, but I believe it also has to call to you. So,
Yeah, like,
and you're going to
I mean,
come
I'm
to
sorry, I
it.
didn't mean, like, force them to
Yeah,
do
no, no,
it
yeah, no,
in
I
our
see what you
dream
mean.
program.
I believe, like, because the problem is you get offered the pharmaceuticals, because you come out, you go to the
Hmm.
VA, they're gonna pump you full of pharmaceuticals. So
Oh, well, you know what?
you're gonna
Then I
get that
take it back.
option.
Maybe they should definitely be offered. If they're being offered pharmaceuticals, it would be only right to offer a natural alternative, I feel.
Oh, it's coming. I mean, I think
Yeah, I think
I
so.
already know. Like, there's some, even the DoD last year was required to invest in research into psychedelic assisted therapy. So,
Perfect for you.
so yeah,
Yeah.
so it's already going down that path. So it's just a matter of, it's not a matter of if. I think it's a matter of when.
Wonderful.
So just, and it again, there's so many different modalities that you can use. So it just kind of depends.
Very true. Well, as we end off here, I end every episode with what's called train of thought, where we connect the ideas from the last episode to the ideas from this episode. So, first things first. If you had to sum up what we've talked about today, what would be one big idea that you would use from our conversation?
Oh, I don't know. Uh, I don't know. I kind of like the dream big, think big. Like, I think a lot of times we can get boxed in by reality,
Mhm.
and as we get boxed in with reality, we can sometimes not, oh, this is not feasible, this is not,
Mhm.
realistic. But as you can talk things out, maybe things are. So, not boxing yourself in, and
Mhm.
in some ways start with dreaming big, and start with, like you had said, let's think bigger and talk bigger, because we don't want to box ourselves in.
I like that a lot, and I could see how that was part of your leadership lessons from your past career as well. So,
Mhm.
let's take this then. Um, don't box yourself in. Think bigger, and you may find that some of these possibilities are actually possible. Now, I'll give you the idea from the last episode that she said, and then your job is to think top of mind how these things connect in your brain. She said, relationships are the starting place for everything. That was the theme of her conversation. So, relationships are the starting place for everything. Now, how does that connect to don't box yourself in and think bigger? Like, where would your brain go first?
My immediate thought was, connecting people to thinking big is, building those relationships with people uh, gets those ideas thinking, gets those ideas turning. So, building strong
Oh, I like
relationships with
it.
people can open up different avenues, because a lot of people in meetings will, just kind of be bogged down, and we don't have strong relationships with different people. So we won't call on different people that may have great ideas. So I think it does start with relationships by, uh, the more comfortable you are with people, the more willing you're going to open up ideas. So, if you
That
have
is
strong
so
relationships with
good.
people, yeah, there you go.
No, that's so good because I think also what I'm taking from what you're saying is like thinking bigger is easier with others. It's
Hmm.
easier with others.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when people are more comfortable, with others, they're more comfortable expressing their ideas, and, that they don't feel like they have to be boxed in.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect way to end. Let's think this through. No pun intended. But I'm very glad that you were able to come chat with me for, a longer period of time than
I
group
appreciate it.
work
Yeah.
on a Tuesday night. So thank you for coming, Jeff.
I'm excited. I appreciate it.